recording. Okay, and I will spotlight myself. All right, so we will get started. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome to the virtual Pasadena Senior Center and the Cynthia Rosedale Memorial Sports Talk Series, Ask the Athletes. I'm Annie Lasky, Director of Events at the Pasadena Senior Center. I'm also manager of the Pasadena Senior Games, which, although I'm sorry to announce we will not be able to go forward in 2021, we do have hopes that other California Senior Games scheduled for later in the year in San Diego and Palo Alto will be able to take place. So stay posted for that. For those of you new to the Pasadena Senior Center, we offer social services, physical fitness, and arts and culture programming to older adults. We are an independent, donor-supported nonprofit organization. This program is named in honor of one of the Senior Center's staunchest supporters, whose legacy continues to fund our programs. Cynthia Rosedale was the longtime director of events at the Pasadena Senior Center. A tireless advocate for senior wellness, Cynthia brought the Pasadena Senior Games to the center in 1994, when these athletic competitions for older adults were just beginning to spread across the nation. While we are still limited in what we can safely do in person, we celebrate Cynthia's power and vision by connecting virtually. Ask the Athletes is co-presented by the California Senior Games Association with assistance from the San Diego Senior Games. We have sessions scheduled on second Mondays all the way through December. So we'll stay on Zoom even though things go back live, because this way we can connect all across the country. Our next scheduled event will be in June 14th, highlighting tennis. I'm happy to announce that we've confirmed two very special panelists, multiple Grand Slam doubles champion Rosie Casals and Dick Gould, who led the tennis program at Stanford for 38 years. You will not want to miss that presentation. Registration should open in the next week or so. If you're not already on our mailing list, you can sign yourself up at pasadenaseniorcenter.org. So to the program at hand. During the presentation, audience microphones will be muted. We encourage you to put your questions and observations in the chat function. And then at the end of the sort of formal interview Q&A, we will have a chance to unmute for audience Q&A. If you have any problems with the reception, I suggest you turn your own camera off. That may help your reception. And also the recording of this program will be posted later on the California Senior Games website, californiaseniorgames.org. It is now my privilege to introduce the moderator of today's program, who will then introduce you to our very special guests. So Ann Warner-Cribbs is the chair of the California Senior Games California Senior Games Association, and director of the Bay Area Senior Games and the Encore Games. As you will also hear, she was one of the founders of the groundbreaking American Basketball League. She's joining us from New York City tonight. So I am delighted to welcome the, I think, fabulous and amazing Ann Cribbs. So take it away, Ann.
Thank you, Annie, very much. Always nice to have you introduce me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, wait, one moment. I just realized I always forget to mute everybody, and that will include you, so you'll have to unmute yourself.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
Okay, I'm back and I now am unmuted. So as Annie said, I'm the chair of the California Senior Games Association and also the director of the Bay Area Senior Games, which we aren't having this year, usually in the springtime, and the Encore Games, which are in the fall and serve as a second opportunity for California athletes to qualify after San Diego. So I'm actually so excited to be here today. I'm almost tongue-tied because of the panelists. I have to admit that Annie actually said this as well. I was one of the 3 co-founders of the American Basketball League, the ABL, from 1995 to 1999. It was definitely a highlight of my career, and just a very, very special time. And so the people that we're going to talk to today had a big part in all of this, and just sort of history was made. So I really appreciate being able to be here. My own basketball career, which was actually, I loved basketball and still do, ended in 8th grade where I dislocated my knee, and the doctor going up for a layup, and the doctor told me that I'd never play basketball again. He also said I'd never swim again. So I thought that he was wrong and went out to prove him wrong, and ended up swimming in the Rome Olympics in 1960. My 2 daughters also played basketball in high school and college. They started out to be swimmers, but that black line on the bottom of the pool, they didn't really care very much for, and they thought it was pretty cool that girls and women could play basketball. So they both played in college. I'm very proud of them, but they were part of my inspiration for wanting to be involved in creating a women's basketball league that women in our country, where basketball was created, could play in their country rather than going to Europe and having to play over there. So enough about me. I just want to welcome the 3 panelists. I hope Lori will join us in a minute, but Kristen Cummings, Ann Myers Drysdale, and Sue Wicks. And I want to start out with Kristen because she's the one that brought us all together. She called her buddies and they said, yes, we'll be on this panel. Kristen is also the commissioner of the San Diego Senior Games, which is a qualifier for the senior games, Fort Lauderdale National Senior Games next year, which will be in May. So Kristen, thank you so much for being here. You need to unmute yourself. Perfect.
Okay.
Got it?
Thank
Okay,
you,
good.
Ann.
So can you start off, Kristen, with just talk a little bit about your athletic career in basketball, what you're doing now, and maybe your most favorite basketball moment, and anything else.
Okay.
Kristen
Yeah.
Cummings from San Diego.
No problem. I guess I was always an athletic kid. As soon as there was a ball flying somewhere, whether it was a softball, soccer, or a basketball, I was very attracted to it. But I also was born deaf. And so when I was growing up, there were certain things that I could do well and certain things that I, had challenges with. And sports was really easy for me. All I had to do was look at somebody, swing a bat, and I go, oh, I can do that. There was no verbal explanation. I just saw it and I could do it. So at 9 years old, I was my mom and dad put me in a Bobby Sox league. And I was just so thrilled, even though I was playing way out in center field, which is where the non-skilled kids played. I was just so thrilled that I was on a team. And I just loved that. And I guess that being so contagious, that enthusiasm being so contagious, my dad decided to say, well, maybe I can coach this. So he started coaching my softball teams from on out. And that was really important to me because I finally had one person who could devote time to me. It wasn't like I was in a group of people who would coach me, it was one person. And that allowed me a lot to understand, oh, okay, this is how sports should grow. So I got into softball and did very well. My dad realized I had some kind of athleticism he didn't know. And then just before as I entered high school, I grew to be about 6 feet. And my dad goes, well, why don't you try out for the basketball team? And so I did and made the varsity on the first try, but only because I was tall. And I was fouled out just about every game there was. And all I could do was get some rebounds and didn't understand. So my point is that was the beginning of me. And it paved the way for my future in the sense of wherever I went, when I had a team that I could communicate with and be able to utilize my talents, that was the way to go. And so in high school, we did very well, 3 times CIF champion, but 2 times CIF champion, but then got a scholarship to Long Beach State. And I didn't realize that, but um, I was, a full scholarship. I was like, okay, cool. But that was 1982 and 81, 82. And that was the first year, 10 years after Title IX was in effect. And so I was actually one of the first generations of women to get basketball scholarships in D1 schools all across the country, because now we were NCAA. And so I was very privileged to have that, and Joan Bombasini as my coach. And we ended up doing really well. And so we were always in the top 10 nationally ranked, and got into being an All-American, and then to the U.S. national teams and so on. So when I finally got into the pros, I was like, oh, cool, it was almost felt like high school again, because now I was at the score all the time. Whereas in Long Beach and national team, I'm with all the other good players. So this time I got to score. And so anyway, I developed my pro career playing overseas. First place I went was in Italy. And my mom was a little concerned. Oh, no, you're going to Italy by yourself? Um, mm, you can't even hear very well. No offense, Mom, but saying that she was a little worried about me adapting. Well, I just happened to have a sister who was fluent in Italian. So she came with me. And so we went to Italy and played for the Italian team. And I just loved playing for a living. It was not a job. I was earning money while I was playing. And I got to use my skills. And yeah, I was suddenly faced with this coach who spoke Italian. And I was kind of like, okay, there you go. Whatever it was, I could not adapt. But thankfully, my sister was able to teach me some sign language. I'm not sign language, but Italian, and go on from there. Well, that was a gateway to a fabulous 12-year career playing pro ball. And since then, I would go back in a heartbeat like that to do what I did then. You get to learn the cultural, you get to learn basketball, you get to learn life, really, in a lot of ways that was just so valuable to me. And because I had a team nearby and I could speak to each teammate one-on-one, it wasn't a big group, it was actually a small group I thrived in. And so needless to say, I retired after 14 years. And then I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. Sorry, I've been using my French, but I did not know. It was like I had to, I was like one of those 21-year-olds who have to decide what they're going to do for a living. Here I was, 36. So I said, well, I know I like basketball, and I know I like, biomechanics, and then all those times in the training tables, I love learning how the knee works and the ankle works, and that's just spit my brain. So I went back to school, got a graduate degree in biomechanics. Still didn't know what I wanted to do. Stumbled upon, and it was stumbled upon senior women's basketball. Turned out that my mom had a hairdresser who was raving about her mom playing basketball. And they play at the Y, somewhere down at the Y. One day, my mom, I was kind of moping around the house. I hadn't even had my own house yet. I was just come back from playing pro. And she goes, well, why don't you just get out there and go down to the Mission Valley YMCA? So I go down. And I'm like, she said, well, I asked her, I said, why? She goes, well, my stylist's mother plays. And I just went, a bunch of old ladies playing basketball? No way. And I was like, no, I'm not going to go there. And she said, go down there. Well, sure enough, I make my way down to the Mission Valley YMCA. And for those of you who know, the Mission Valley YMCA, you go down this long hallway, and then you just open up into this big, magnificent gym that the whole gym was filled with women over 50 playing basketball. And I was just standing there in the doorway, stunned. And I actually got goosebumps. I'll never forget that. And I looked at them, and sure enough, the first thing they do is they come up to me and they say, "How old are you?" And I'm like, "That's an odd question." And they said, "No, how old are you?" And I said, "Well, I think I was 40 at the time. I'm 40. Oh, Dan, you gotta wait 10 years. 10 years for what? Which is you can play in our league. Oh, okay, what league? You know, and that was where I got to see that. And by the way, when I was standing in that doorway, uh, that very first team that I saw playing right in front of me was the Splash. And they were at the time 75 and older. And immediately one of them comes up to me and said, "Well, if you can't play, can you coach?" And they didn't know who I was. Just 6'3" frame, filling the doorway frame, I guess, told them enough. And I said, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll help you out, help you out." Well, long story short, I ended up coaching them. We went to nationals. That was when I got involved with senior sports. And I had coached a little bit briefly in junior college as an assistant. And I was thinking maybe I can go into coaching because I love coaching. Coaching's always been a great thing for me, natural thing for me. But I was thinking of going into college and coaching there, and then I see these little old ladies, they're needing my help. And I go, "Well, sure, I'll help you out." But what I learned from that transformation now, after over the years, they're not little old ladies. They are vibrant, active, smart, competitive, ferocious athletes. And that totally changed my mindset of what it means to be a senior. And during that time, because of that transformation, I said, I'm going to be working in the senior sports industry. And so I was the commissioner of basketball and did that for 8 years. And then the executive director at that time was put in her resignation for a year. She had enough, and I stepped in. And so I've been here now 4 years, and I love what I do in the sense I love what it's for. I'm a very firm believer that senior sports should exist, that all men and women over 50 should have a chance to play sports. And that's where I'm at. And I'm just very honored to be here to share this with my people, and both past and present and future. And that's it. That's my story.
Well, Kristen, we sure are glad you walked in the door of that gym and saw all those senior athletes, because you're doing a great job in San Diego, and it's really important. And one thing I think that all of us who are involved in senior athletics really get is that the athletes are so enthusiastic. Their spirit is contagious. The aches and pains don't seem to be there for very long, and they just want to get out and play. And I can't tell you how many people I've had on the phone call me and say, "When are we getting the venues back? When are we going to be able to compete again?"
Exactly.
And all of
Exactly.
that. So it's really great. Well, thank you for that story. Some of it I didn't know, so I'm really glad to know it. I'd like to turn now to Sue Wicks. Sue, you've been, somebody that I've known about and known for a very long time. Could you talk a little bit about your athletic career and what you're doing now and all of that? So thanks for being here with us.
Thank you. And it's great because Kirk, I know her story. We played together in Japan. So I got to meet her dad and got to hear his story, telling that story. I got to meet her mom. You can imagine her telling her, "Yeah, get down there and play." So all those connecting points with athletes certainly do make up a career, not just our playing. My basketball started when I was in the 9th grade. The first time I had an opportunity to play organized basketball was in the 9th grade, and I couldn't wait to get a uniform. For some reason, that just had such a lure to me. I'm like, oh, I could have a uniform. I could be on a team, and I didn't know how to play basketball at all. And I made the JV team, and I was pretty lousy, but I was on the team. And then it was my sophomore year when I was on the team when my coach told me, and I think the power of him singling me out and telling me that women could earn a scholarship. And he showed me a little article, and it was a tiny little, this big, in our newspaper, that Rutgers had won their national championship game. So that just started it for me, the chance to dream about being an athlete. And I think that's something that we're going to talk about with senior athletes that you're talking about, with young girls, and starting in ABL, starting the WNBA, the chance to dream. And I know that was a magical moment for me when my coach showed me that. And I was like, wow, I can do something with this and go somewhere and go to college. Probably not to national champion Rutgers, but someone might give me a scholarship, was my thought when I was 15 years old. So senior year, I got a scholarship to Rutgers. I played at Rutgers for 4 years. I played for one of the best players of all time and a fantastic coach, Teresa Grant, who will, Hall of Fame player, coach, contributor, just an amazing person to be my coach that shared so much with me in basketball. And then where did we go after college? There was no internet. There wasn't great communication. I didn't know any players that were playing overseas. Someone told me, I think you can go to Europe and they will give you $15,000 a year. And I was like, what? I couldn't believe that that was a possibility, that someone was going to pay us. And I was doing the math, like 15,000, that's over $1,000 a month. This is amazing. So my first contract was from Italy, and I promise you it was written on a paper napkin. So I was like, this is legit, I'm going, it's on a napkin, it's signed. And I got there, and Lori Bird was one of my teammates in Lake Como, Italy, a fantastic teammate to have. She was already a pro for a few years, and she knew about training and self-discipline. And she used to, she's not on here yet, but as you know, her brother and her father are all well-known boxers. So her warm-ups were always shadow boxing and, going to the sauna every day. And she'd always grab me. And I was trying to sleep in and go get croissants and cappuccinos. And she's like, come on, we got to go to the gym. We got to train. So I had a great teammate there. And I played in Europe, all over Europe for the next, I would say 9 years, 7, 8 years, something like that. And then the WNBA started, and that was fantastic. It was a dream come true for me to be part of that, to come back to New York, where I was, where I come from, to play in Madison Square Garden, where my beloved Knicks played, where I grew up watching them every night on the television. So to stand on that floor, Madison Square Garden, look up at those banners and the famous Knicks players, and to, have my hand on my heart and listen to the national anthem. I think you have to have spent the time that Kirk and Lori, had spent in Europe, away from our family, away from our country, away from home, and to come home and share that basketball with a cousin, an uncle, a neighbor, that instead of the obscurity of playing in Europe with no internet, no television, there's no satellite, there's no one knows you've ever played, or you were gone, you were finished. No one ever saw you again when you went to play in Europe. And then there's Annie doing our games. I think it was NBC to start, and just to watch her come in the room, because in women's basketball, she's on Mount Rushmore.
Yep.
And, I could barely speak with her, but there she was talking about my team, my performance, and coming and interviewing me. So all of that was a dream come true. And those possibilities, I always think that basketball is about dreaming. It is about the imagination of what's possible. And when we started this generation of players, the opportunities were very small, but they expanded and exploded, and they continue to expand and explode. And we have a generation of players that demand more, that so many times you hear athletes being entitled. I think that's fantastic. yeah, we're entitled to go out there and shine. We're entitled to go out there and show our talent. We're entitled to these things, and we're going to make more opportunities for the next generation. So that's pretty much my story about
Oh, I
that.
bet there's more to it than that, Sue. But you know what? It's just so great to hear you speak about the times earlier and the times now and the comparison and what the college athletes are able to do now and look forward to in the draft, and then what the 10-year-olds are able to look forward to as they're playing in 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about Title IX. We always have to mention it, but when we look at the 1996 Team USA, and see that not only the basketball players at the Atlanta Olympics, but the softball players and the soccer players all won gold medals. And that's the direct result of Title IX and equal opportunity in our colleges. So thanks to all of that, thanks to Title IX for all of that. And it's really made an incredible difference. And now the really interesting thing is that many young women don't know what Title IX is. And, that's a blessing and a curse. We can't forget about it, but it's nice they don't have to think about it. So anyhow, thank you for those stories. And I'm going to come back a little bit, but I want to move on to Annie Myers, who has been my hero for a long time, a fellow Olympian. Annie, just talk to us a little bit about you and basketball. On mute. Can you unmute yourself? Annie Lasky, can you do that?
Yeah, I'm getting there. There you are. Okay.
I love how Anne stays cool
There.
under
There you
pressure.
go.
Yeah, very cool under pressure, right?
What are you gonna do? It's all gonna work out, right?
Right, yeah. So anyhow, thank you, Annie.
Well, honestly, it was an honor for me to call Kirsten's games and Sue's games. And I got into broadcasting because of basketball. I went to UCLA, and certainly I come from a family of 11 children, and Title IX started in 72, and I was
Yep.
still in high school. And the thing is, I do remember women that played before me, not only in basketball, but if you had any interest in sports, and even today, whether you are a father or mother, and your daughter shows an interest in a sport, it's your obligation to show them the women that came before you. And hopefully the internet has that. So to read and know about a Wilma Rudolph, or like you, Anne, in the Olympics, and Donna De Verona, and Willie White and Althea Gibson. I mean, just,
Yeah.
to me, Babe Didrikson, and that was
Babe.
going back to 36 or 32, I should say. And the Olympics was where women kind of got recognition. And then tennis with Billie Jean King beating Bobby Riggs in 74. And then the Women's Sports Foundation starting after Title IX. And in 1975, I was a freshman at UCLA and was the first woman to get a full athletic scholarship. I think, you talked, Sue, about the universities across the country giving scholarships to young girls, and which is great, but it still is not happening. There's still a lot of, I think, schools that are undermining women's sports. But in saying that, we've been so blessed to be coming along when we did. I have a sister that was 8 years older than I was. And so I saw these women play softball, play volleyball, play, basketball. And I played with them when I was in junior high. I played against my brothers, and I started on an organized team, on a boys team in 5th and 6th grade. Didn't realize that my parents had to go, walk through all these different things through the school system to get me to play. Annie, you talked about, barriers, and you just go through them. I mean, you've got to find ways to, make it work. But certainly going to UCLA, I believe still personally that myself or women's basketball at that time would not have received the recognition that it did. I was at UCLA, a big name school. My brother David was an All-American there playing for John Wooden. John
Yeah.
Wooden, UCLA winning championships, gave us credibility. He talked about women's basketball. He talked about our team because of my brother and my relationship. And so the media took off on that. The 1976 Olympics came along and, we won silver. Certainly, I think playing USA basketball and all those different teams was a big plus. I was the #1 draft pick in the WBL, which was the first women's pro basketball league. And there were 7 other leagues before the ABL even came around. And the ABL was, we were all excited about it because Annie, I came up and talked to you guys up in San Jose about it. And I know Teresa Edwards was huge in being a part of that too. But there's been these different small steps to get where we are with the WNBA today. And not only with USA basketball, AIAW, still the athletes, not only in just basketball, but all sports in college, those women that played and competed AIAW are not recognized. The coaches are, but not the athletes. And it's still very frustrating to have the NCAA, this organization, that to deal with because of what they did. Is a perfect example of the women's basketball tournament this year with the weights and the whole thing with that. And that's not the only thing. I mean, it's just, we talk about systemic racism. Well, there definitely is systemic sexism in this country, and especially with women's sports. And I love the fact that we have a platform, no matter what the sport is, especially basketball, which gets the most recognition over beach volleyball or gymnastics or water polo or track and field. A lot of those are just during the Olympic times. But with basketball, because whether it competes with the men and so forth or the support, but the platform that women have, not only for the rights of your body, the rights of what your nationality is, or the color of your skin, or who you love. There's so many different things that sports brings out. And quite frankly, it scares a lot of the white men, which this world has been run by most of our lives and probably will be still after we're gone. But I think it scares them. And so they continue to try and, find ways to put us down. But so many women, because of sports, the qualities of perseverance and just, they're not going to quit. They're not going to let people beat them. And whatever their cause is, whether it is sports, and I think sports should be used as politics because everything is politics. I just watched last night the documentary on Tommie Smith in 1968, which was the first Olympics that was televised live. And how do you not bring politics into the Olympics, which they do all the time? The fact that we play a national anthem and raise our flag, that's political. So sports has given me a great perspective of life, and going to UCLA has helped develop me. I miss going over to Europe, which I know a lot of young women that did, as you two did. And Denise Curry, who at UCLA, she's the all-time leading scorer at UCLA, did not have the three-point line, did not have the small ball, and still beat all the guys, whether it was Cream or Don McLean or anybody else, is the all-time leading scorer at UCLA. And she played over in Germany, I think 14 years. I think both of you might have played against her. But, to see what the ABL, we were all excited about that. I was excited about the WBL. And unfortunately, it lasted 2.5 years. But just the fact that it got off the ground, and the salaries weren't great, but like you said, Sue, just to get paid to play, to do something that you love. And I think that that's the one thing that we try to get across to people is like, why should we be denied to do something that we love to do? And we're capable of doing it and want to do it. And there's the avenues to do it, just like the seniors. Why should the seniors be denied to go compete? And the fact that there is the opportunity to do that is awesome. And certainly it's awesome that we have a league 25 years old in the WNBA. And now we're seeing more about soccer. We're seeing about beach volleyball and some of the other leagues. But basketball is the one that stands out, and very proud to have been a part of it.
Well, we're sure glad that you're part of it, Annie, still, because you were so passionate and so articulate about what you have to say and about women's sports, but about sports in general. I love it that you talked about John Wooden, because when we were starting to publicize the ABL, we were able to get him to say, you know, women's basketball is really the basketball because they pass. It's the way basketball should be played. And we're pretty excited that he would take notice about that. What a grand gentleman he was. So I'm going to ask you three to talk a little bit about sort of keeping mentally and physically fit in this time of COVID. I mean, depending upon where you live, we're all coming out of COVID to a different varying extent. But how did sports help you guys during the lockdown, if you were indeed locked down? If you were in California, we were really locked down and we're coming out of it now. Other places, not so much. Annie, I don't know your experience in Arizona. I guess it was a little bit more open. And Susan, I guess in New York, you were pretty locked down as well. But just talk a little bit about what you did during COVID to kind of keep both mentally and physically fit, because it was as much of a challenge mentally as it was physically, I think. So Kristen, you want to take a stab at that first, and then we'll. You're on mute.
Yeah,
Now you're off.
definitely. COVID was an unusual time. I mean, I'm sure everybody agrees with that. We are in a whole new different plane in terms of, you know, how we were carrying on our work forward. And now that that had kind of stopped and it had to pivot and go in which direction and how are we going to do that? For me, I used COVID as a time of reflection. Because things did slow down. I didn't have to be, I wasn't worried about working for the games or for going to my next client or my next something. It actually kind of put me at home and made me a lot more reflective. And what that did was also give me more time to absorb and learn more about the political trauma that was going on in our country. I mean, it was in our face. So, like when Black Lives Matter came out, instinctively, I was just very, very happy with it because, and I asked myself often, why am I so for the Black Lives Matter? And I realized over time was because it matters to me. As a black person going into a hearing world, as a woman going into a man's world, as a lefty going to a righty world, you know, you can name any kind of obstacles that you have to come through, and that needs to be voiced, it needs to be shared, it needs to be spread out, it needs to be loved. And that gave me a lot of admiration for what the WNBA has done, and with some of the other sports industries have done. But it also has told me how far we have to go. But as Anne was talking about, in terms of all the steps that we have taken, I felt like we were actually able to witness through the media the next shift of steps that we have taken to bring inclusivity to all of us as athletes. And I couldn't agree with you more that, you know, and both of you, and whoever, that, you know, the sports that the NCAA had tried to bring in terms of, you know, saying this is where we can leave our politics out and all that. Well, I agree with Anne, it's not entirely true, but at the same time, it does force you to be with your teammates. It enforces inclusion, which is where the learning curve comes in. So for me, to answer your question, what did I do during the COVID time? That was a big chunk of it. That was a really big chunk of learning how to do that. And then as far as my own physical ability and wanting to play basketball, I realized I was sitting on the couch too much. I was sitting in front of my computer too much. So I had to figure out how I was going to get out of there. And so I actually have a coach now. And how cool is that? I usually am the one coaching or being a trainer of someone else. And I thought, you know what? No, I'm just as human as everyone else. I want a coach. So I actually hired a coach, and he is going to, you know, keep going with me on my physical journey and trying to get back on the court and be as good as I can be. Thanks to the inspiration of all the seniors, knowing that I can actually play until I'm 90. I'm going for it. I'm going for that. And that means paying attention to yourself. It means understanding where you are and where you want to go, and then doing the steps you can do it. And wherever you are is good. Wherever you want to go is good. It's your own personal journey that matters. And those are the steps that I'm just going to be taking during this time.
Well, Kristen, two things about that. One, your word perspective. I think that we all gained a lot of perspective through COVID, definitely. And the other thing that I smile about is the ability of social media and women's athletes to really affect a change. That great video from an iPhone, I guess, about the weight room at the NC2A Women's Final Four. A picture, 1,000 words. That was great, and that was will bring about, I think, at least a lot of discussion and hopefully some change. So, Susan, what about you during this time?
So there's two parts for me. The first part, I work in aquaculture. So I'm a farmer. I work on the water with farming. I do oysters and sugar kelp. So when it started and we had the shutdown, all my restaurants pretty much shut down. So our business stopped as well, but I was still able to go to my farm every day, take my boat ride for 12 minutes, get to my farm and work every day. So I was like a great big part of America. I spent most of my time outdoors, which was lovely. And we certainly had a lot of challenges with work and hiring people and social distancing because the boat is so small. So, I was just super grateful that I had that haven, that place that was so special, that connection to nature, and that being a farmer and essential worker, that I could continue to work. And then I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So then I had to get surgery, and then I had to get chemotherapy and then radiation, and all of that during COVID was extremely challenging. And, we talk about, when you're talking about Black Lives Matter and you're talking about compassion, and you have compassion because you can see things, I think, or you feel that you have some connection because something's happened to you. The compassion that I felt for the other cancer patients that were, for the most part, I would say 9% very frail, older people that were there without their spouse, without their emotional support because you weren't allowed in the hospital. To watch them go that alone, that type of loneliness was very powerful. Human experience, and it hit me in that empathy, like, oh my gosh, this is those parts of lives that we don't take a peek inside of, that we don't get to see. And I think that I can't find a blessing for myself with the cancer, but I do find that that trouble that I went through gave me a different insight into the trouble that other humans are going into, that I didn't give enough thought to because it wasn't part of, outside of this. So that was a part of COVID, of being sick myself and not having support because no one could come visit me. And then watching these other people with their brave faces every day going in to get their treatment was a big part of my COVID experience.
Wow, that's a very powerful story, very empathetic as well, the ability to think about other people and put yourself in their place and that kind of thing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think empathy, sometimes it comes to us like that. It's not always sitting there meditating and through sitting in an ashram or talk therapy. Sometimes the universe hits us with some powerful stuff in our lives to give us that space where the light gets in, then you get to see things differently. So certainly, yes, I experienced that.
Well, hopefully as we move to the future, we all have the ability to see things in a little bit different way. One hopes. So, Annie?
I don't want to follow Sue.
I didn't
well,
want to follow you. I was so glad.
My prayers are with you every day.
Thank
And,
you.
you know, and it is like somebody told me that this life is not a dress rehearsal. This is what we have.
Mhm.
And the woulda, shoulda, couldas, which I try and talk about, you know, somebody gives you an opportunity to do it because you don't want to look back in life and say, I wish I had. And certainly we've all had adversity in our life and still deal with adversity. And we do the best we can. Certainly those are tough times when you're going through what you're going through, Sue, and or if somebody's lost a loved one and or somebody gets injured and so forth. There's so many things that all of us have gone through. And so we hopefully find the passion and the empathy to have kindness to everybody else and not be so angry. But I worked for the Phoenix Suns and Mercury, and I was broadcasting. And so my games with the Suns were up, and my sister and sister-in-law, we went over to Hawaii for a 2-week vacation, and we were kind of stuck over there. My older son called me. He said, "Oh, guess what's going on? This disease." And we're in Hawaii. We're having dinner with everybody and walking around. We have no what's a mask? We had no idea, and just having a great time. And then when we got back to the mainland, it was very, very standoffish. And I was in California at the time. My daughter graduated from UCLA, and so she came home, and we walked the golf course every day. I had back surgery about 2 years or a year before that. And now they're talking about knee replacement. I just love basketball, what it's done to my body, but it's all good. It's all good. But so we walked like 6 miles or 4 miles every morning on the golf course. And but we ended up being one of those COVID puppy people. And so my daughter, you know, looked online, and we ended up getting a puppy, and this puppy is now a year old. And so we've dealt with that. And so you go walking with the dog and everything. And I've just started to try and play golf again. And like Kristen was saying, it's like, oh, yeah, you look in the mirror, it's like, where did all that weight come from? And it just, so I just pop another cookie in my mouth. I don't know. And so, but, you know, I'm just grateful for having the opportunity to work and to continue to stay in touch with people. Certainly with the game that we love, and in so many other ways, and with family. And my mom's 95, and she's in a dementia home. And so we were all, you know, concerned. We couldn't see her. We couldn't go in the room or just even get there. And so things started opening up, and certainly wearing masks, we're able to go in, and we're vaccinated. So that helps that we can go see our mom at 95. And it's tough to see her like that, but you know, she's just a woman that gives us a lot of strength and will.
Yeah. Well, I think that we all have a lot of gratitude for, you know, the blessings that we have, but I think there also is a lot of grief that people have for what we've all lost, because everybody has lost something, or maybe more than some things. So for the basketball players who are on this call, what advice do you have about getting back to basketball after COVID in terms of training or nutrition? Maybe a couple of quick thoughts about that. And I'm going to start with Sue.
So this is for our senior basketball players?
Yeah, for the senior basketball players that are on the call.
Honestly, I think that for any basketball player, I always think, I coach high school basketball, and I always try and emphasize, have joy in your heart when you're doing this. And I'm talking about working hard, giving 100%, but it cannot be a misery. The hard work has to be joyous. So in all things you do, bring that joy in your heart, because it feels fantastic. It's fantastic to watch, and it's contagious to people around you. And that basketball for me is a joyous act. It's a joyous act.
I love that. That's great. That is great. Annie?
Well, I want to follow up, and Kirsten's been kind enough to have me go down to San Diego to talk to the league and the Splash. And then a few years ago, the Mercury had the Splash come to Phoenix for a Mercury game, and they performed at halftime. I know one of them fell. She was like 88 at the time. She popped right back up. But they have it. They all have the determination, like Kirsten was saying. I was like, they get out there, they're competitive. They want to win. But they love it. They absolutely love it. And that's what makes them go out there and play. And they have a great time, and they're all friends. And but boy, when they got on that court, don't mess.
Don't mess with
They
them.
are tough. And but I love the competitiveness. You don't have to tell them that they got to come out and play, because they all want to be there. And it's a great opportunity to have a socialization with women that do something that you love, and that they're all kind of in the same boat. And they don't talk about their illnesses or soreness or this ache or pain. They don't do that. They talk about life. They talk about living.
Yeah, that is so well said. I just have loved so much being involved with the Senior Games since like 2006 or 2007. And whenever you go out to see any of the events, whether it's archery or basketball or volleyball or track and field or swimming or whatever, I mean, it is amazing. Everybody, maybe 90%, are so enthusiastic and so excited to be there. And it's a very contagious spirit. If we could bottle it and put it into, sell it, we would all be millionaires or something like that. Kristen, what training tips do you have?
Well, being here in San Diego, we have the SWBA league, and that's 125 women over 50 playing. And these guys are my teacher. They're the ones I just found out that there was one gal who would go into find a hard court in the backyard of a hospital, and she would practice there. And she had a mask on, and she would just go out there. And then there's another small group, 3 or 4 people, going into a local gym that actually let them in, and they're playing with their masks on here. And I think what Ann said hit, and sure too, is the reason why these women play is because they have such joy in playing. They don't care that no one is watching them. They're in the gym loving to hear the sound of the ball bouncing, that determination that the ball is going to go through the hoop, and the joy of being able to play with a teammate and figure out what is a pick and roll. All these things are giving them mental gymnastics, that they're developing their brain, they're developing their bodies, and so they're developing that socialization. That's what it is to be human. Now, if you talk about this splash player, and my favorite one, I love them all, but one of my biggest role models is Grace Larson. Grace took up the game at the age of 79. Now, who in their right mind would pick up a game at the age of 79? She does it. She didn't think twice. She goes, well, I can, so I will. And having that, and the thing about Grace, and she exemplifies this, and I think I see this in a lot of the women, is that she knows where she is. She knows where she would like to go, and she does the work to get there. She's not going, oh, I'm too old, I can never do this, I'll never do it again. She doesn't have that mindset. She goes, no, you're right, I can't run a 50-yard dash very fast. It doesn't matter. She loves having the ball in her hands. She loves taking it in the basketball room. I mean, you should see her the way she carries the basketball. She's got some swag, when she's walking in there. And that is why. So when we talk about the little girls, the 5-year-olds who want to play basketball, well, let's do the same thing for the 75-year-olds.
Yep.
It's the same.
I think you're right. So, you guys jumped into my last question, which was any other words of wisdom. And I think that I have heard all the words of wisdom, but I'm going to give you one more round before we open this up for questions. Annie will take over the questions, and there may be some questions from people. If you want to put them in the chat, do. If you just want to raise your hand, we can call on you. I do have one comment from Daryl Kavanaugh, who said he has found swimming laps multiple times a week during COVID to be great cross training for basketball. So, swimming and basketball can coexist, which is a great thing. So let's see if we can find some questions, Annie, but one more round of any final words of wisdom from you guys who are such representatives of sport and very inspirational. So Annie, let's start with you.
I think
words.
everybody saw it. We'll wait for the questions because everybody saw it from all three of us as far as the passion that we have and the love of the game and how much we've all enjoyed it and we put the work in. So, so I'll just wait for the questions.
Great. It's like showing up, doing the work, being determined and never, ever, ever giving up. Susan?
I say, just like I tell my players, and I think I tried to do it as a player when I was doing it well, do your best and then let it go. Come back the next day and do your best. Try not to lose sleep over your mistakes, celebrate what you do well, come back the next day and do it again.
Yeah, I love that. And the whole idea that there's always another game, there's always another race, there's always another event. And I heard John Madden once say, great players have short memories. And I think that that's probably pretty apt as well. Kristen, what about you?
I just, I said it before, and that is, have a relationship with your own body and your own mind and yourself, basically, to understand what you can improve on and how you can act on your passions and your dreams. Because yes, we have dreams, and even 75-year-olds have dreams. You can have these dreams, and it's just a matter of tapping into yourself to be able to, let that be manifest. And the more that you are in tune with yourself, the more you're going to enjoy exactly what's going on around you. And there's nothing. I mean, we talked about racism and sexism, but we also have ageism. And ask that question to yourself and know, can you do it? And right now we have a whole world of senior sports athletes that have shown you can do it. So I think that's the key, is to have that relationship with yourself as you go on your journey, wherever it is. And if it's basketball, then we got a whole lot of women who are going to be able to support you.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Annie, questions? Annie Lasky, questions?
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, now the clarification of the Annie.
We have a lot of
and
Annies
that are
on this call, right?
So one of the question that, or a statement that just came in that I think would be interesting to respond to is Susan Kirsch says, I've never been a professional athlete, but I feel so validated and empowered through sports. And I think that that's a very true thing, that you don't have to be brilliant to understand the camaraderie and the empowerment.
Yeah, I think that's a really good end to a great panel. So I don't see any more questions.
Yeah, oh, Allison, if you can, oh, wait a minute, I need to actually make it so that you can unmute yourself. There we go. All of these pesky little controls. Okay, there, Allison, you can unmute yourself, and there you go.
There were a couple things that popped out at me on the lighter side. Sorry, I have trouble talking without crying sometimes. Anyway, when Kirsten first came home from the Mission Valley watching the 70-plus-year-olds play, I said, well, what was it like? Could they move? And she said, well, they play 3-on-3 half court, but Mom, do they ever know what the elbows are for? And that came out right away. And then the other fun one was, I remember Annie sports casting, and she had a male co-host, surprise, surprise. And he said, so Annie, tell me, have you ever done a slam dunk? And she said something like, Well, I can do a slam dunk on a really good day. I just haven't had that good a day yet. Thinking on your feet, Annie, that was great.
Nice. Does anybody else have a comment or a question? I'll just say for myself, I had a little chance to visit with Sue before all this started, but I've been following women's basketball since I ended up getting a $5 ticket to the WNBA playoffs when the Sparks won in 2000, and have been just a real serious fan for years. I'm not an athlete, and watching the work ethic, and I just say, I want to be Elena Beard. I mean, that's just like my, I want that kind of drive, and I see that, and I try to emulate what you all do, maybe not in basketball, but in life, because it's so inspiring for someone who doesn't play, but who has watched it for many, many, many years.
Well, I just want to say, I think I'm unmuted now. I just want to say thank you very, very much. And I'd love to have everybody just, thank you. Really appreciate your being part of this, and stay safe, keep in shape, and prayers for all of you. And thank you again for joining this. This was great. Bye-bye, everybody.
Yeah, and I also just want to add my thanks to all of this, and that we will be posting this on the California Senior Games website. So tell your friends because we had a lot of people who signed up who didn't make it in. There might have been some issues or something, but I know that some of the wonderful stories you've told and just sort of your life experience is really amazing. So everyone spread the word, and thank you. It's just been a super treat for me to meet you, to meet Annie and Sue, who I haven't had a chance to meet before. And thank you so much, Anne, for hosting, and thank you, Kirsten, for everything you do. And live long and prosper, as they say. So thank you, everyone, for joining us for this wonderful time.
Bye-bye. Be well.